neighboring countries in managing and eradicating FMD. We would like to reiterate that our expertise and resources are at the disposal of the region, including South Africa, to safeguard the livestock industry, which is crucial to the livelihood of many across the African continent. We are looking at supplying the second consignment of 400,000 doses by the end of this particular month of July.
And lastly, an Australian inquest has ruled that a police officer who shot and killed an Indigenous teenager while trying to arrest him was racist. The police force itself has also been criticised. The BBC's Mickey Bristow explains.
19-year-old Kumanjayi Walker was shot by Constable Zachary Rolfe in Australia's Northern Territory 6 years ago. Although he's been sacked from the force, the officer was cleared of the teenager's murder. Nevertheless, his 700-page report read out in the remote community where the shooting took place makes it clear that he was a racist, as were some of his fellow officers, and this could have contributed to the teenager's death. The coroner has suggested the police change the way it operates.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Minutes into the first hour of The Upside. We are extraordinarily, exceptionally, out of bouncily excited to be back with you again. Happy New Week. Happy New Week, dear friend. And thank you so much for tuning in. We're 7 days into a brand new month. And I believe it's a very significant day because it's 7/7. 7th day of the 7th month. So it's a 777 portal, as I understand it. But we might talk about that a bit later on the show. Thank you for tuning in. The space is called The Upside with Tebogo, Lekhuleni and Mmatsheko Mosito. We are in each other's company until 4 p.m. in Central African time. Thank you for tuning in via satellite across the African region, channel PAS 10. You can find us in Southern Africa on satellite as well, channel 802. That's on the DSTV audio bouquet. You can also find us on channel 628 on OpenView HD. Otherwise, the traditional World Wide Web, channelafrica.co.za. How you doing, my old friend? You know that song?
Which one is that one?
Da, 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 my old friend. I don't know if it's the Bee Gees or someone. Something, my old friend.
Mmatsheko. You know, sometimes you
clearly didn't
bring
miss me,
out
you know,
all kinds of music And maybe I've never, actually, maybe I have heard it.
You know the song, I promise you.
We'll play it during the break, right? And maybe it will jog my memory.
Okay.
But I am fantastic, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm good. So you and I decided we're going to have 2 separate weekends. We're having a discussion about weekending together, but that didn't happen because you needed to do rugby and other wonderful things that include being outdoorsy.
Oh, it was fantastic.
I did luncheon. So how was your weekend?
I'll tell you all about it later on during the show. I see we have run out of time, but here's what's coming up on the show this afternoon.
Tell us.
We're talking about neurodivergent minds. Maybe it's a concept that you haven't heard of before. This is given to people whose brain functions a bit differently from what we consider typical. We're talking about people with ADHD. Was it ADHD? That one, dyslexia, people whose brains process a bit differently from what we consider typical and normal. And we're talking about the psychology behind that. And then later on, we'll be discussing designing spaces, workspaces, homes at schools for people who require a different level of, shall we say, attention when it comes to stimuli, processing information, and so on and so forth. And then we have a fun conversation about folklore in film. This is inspired after the Durban July Mzansi Marvels theme this year. And we find out if the film industry is bringing to life the folklore that we grew up with, the different characters, I won't bore you about it now, but stay tuned. We'll be talking about the folklores in film and are we doing enough to celebrate them on the African continent?
Well, it sounds like an exciting show. We encourage you to stay with us. We're on until 4 p.m. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Upside.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Broadcasting in 5 different languages, connecting the continent. This is the African Perspective. The Upside, taking the African perspective to fresh levels. 9 till 10, we take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lekhuleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10, we take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones. On air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lekhuleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochi Tika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10, we take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana.
10 minutes after 1 p.m. Central African Time. Amanzi aweko Jonina. Welcome to the Upside on Channel Africa, the African perspective on this beautiful Monday afternoon. How are you doing? How was the weekend? Let us know on our WhatsApp line, +2763 406 9126. And we stream live on our social media platforms at Channel Africa on Facebook and YouTube. We are about to have a very important conversation about neurodivergency. Perhaps a term that you haven't heard before, or maybe you saw it on social media, but what is it? What is it all about? We break it down this afternoon with an educational psychologist, so we better understand what neurodivergency is and how we can go about creating spaces to ensure that people are well taken care of, that their needs are met, educational and otherwise, and that we don't leave anyone behind. So if you have heard the term before and maybe you have classified your own children or someone that you know around you as a neurodivergent, this conversation is for you.
Yeah, so I mean, think about it. Think about what Tebogo has said. Think about the colors on the walls, the way nature lights up and how we view that space. Think about calm spaces and how they feel. Well, today we're going to take a closer look at how our physical environment impacts mental health, mental wellness, as it's now termed, not just generally, but especially for those who experience the world differently. And those are, of course, neurodivergent individuals. We are going to be exploring how things like lighting, like noise, like textures, and even layout can actually affect focus, calm, anxiety levels, and also emotional regulation. So without any further ado, I'd like us to welcome Palisa Khatebe, I beg your pardon, who's an educational psychologist. So she can help us really, I think, establish firstly what neurodivergence is before we really get into the nitty-gritties of interior design, as it were. Nomsa, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to Channel Africa.
Good afternoon, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be in these spaces and talking about these very important topics.
Thank you. I think this one is incredibly fascinating because we're very quick to define, what psychological box we can put people in, but we don't really look at ways of being in terms of, what we're about to look at when we look at decorating, when we look at how we view stimuli, as it were. But let's start with determining, or rather defining, what neurodivergence is.
No, thank you very much. So, 100%. And you guys, in just the intro, speaking around the different ways in which our environment and our different stimulus, ways in which we participate within the world, kind of can affect how it is these individuals who are termed neurodivergent kind of participate within the world. And when we start from that particular point of conversation, is understanding, as you said, what is neurodivergence? And in its simplest form, it just speaks to the way in which your neural development, to the way in which your brain functions, and more importantly, takes in information. So neurodevelopment, neurological understandings, and the cognitive forming of how it is our brains develop and then utilize information that they receive is at times very different to how it is the quote-unquote typical developing individual looks like. So very often we find that neurodivergent individuals are working with stimuli almost simultaneously at the same time, and therefore it's overwhelming, and their pathways in which they then work with the information or the stimulus that comes into their environment, their processes, can be overwhelming, and then the ability to kind of effectively process and then function within their environments and the world tends to be a little bit difficult. So we talk about the neurodivergence and the differentiation being multiple stimulus at the same time, making it hard for functioning within the general environment.
We are currently in conversation with Mmatsheko Khatebe, educational psychologist, about the psychology of neurodivergent minds, and then also we'll be tackling spaces, creating spaces to ensure that it soothes their brains and their neurological pathways, not overstimulating them in the workspaces at home and in the classrooms. We continue the conversation right after this.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege.
This song has a line that I love so much in the isiXhosa language. It says, "Andinayo nesentem daga." So I went down to the Eastern Cape. So I went to Yanga and said, "Yanga, tell me here, what does andinayo nesentem daga mean?"
If I say andinayo nesentem daga, it means that I do not have any money on me. I do not have money to give to you.
Interesting, because in Chivenda, I would just say, "Atinana peni, ndo charungwe." I wonder if you have that expression in your home language when you want to say you're broke, but in a very creative way. What do you say? I'd like to hear from you.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet.
Channel 802.
We take no sides, none whatsoever. We are the upside.
Well, it's 22 minutes after 1 p.m. Central African Time. We continue our conversation with educational psychologist Mmatsheko Khatebe about neurodivergency. Nomsa, let's continue the conversation with, is neurodivergency a medical term?
Absolutely. Tebogo, it is a medical term by virtue of it being within the DSM-5 and 6, kind of outlining and determining the different characteristics that speak to how it is a child or an individual who has demonstrated the onset characteristics presenting. So absolutely, neurodivergency is the umbrella term for the different disorders that can fall under that umbrella term. So yes.
And what are the key environmental triggers that can negatively impact someone who is neurodivergent?
Good question. I think just going back to what I had mentioned for a moment around how it is stimulus that are occurring almost simultaneously for an individual, I want you for a moment, as well as all of the listeners, to consider all 5 of your senses, right? So you have sight, smell, auditory, visual, and touch, right? And so when an individual is deemed to be on the spectrum or within a neurodivergent environment, then they experience all of these sensations at the same time. So everything is just exceptionally heightened. And with them being heightened in that capacity, then we find ourselves not being able to effectively focus and then work through anything and everything that would be deemed allowing you to be able to remain within line and then successfully complete tasks. So when we are looking at a neurodivergent individual and the disorders that align with it, we often find that they are just consistently on high edge, experiencing an overstimulation and inability to remain focused and grounded with one task at a time. So as we're moving through all of the experiences of trying to therefore move through the world, move through the spaces, we then have to consider how would it feel if you're experiencing all these senses concurrently, right? But when you're thinking about a neurodivergent individual, we have to be very acutely aware of what are they consistently seeing. So the visual stimulus is very important. What does the noise level sound like? So the auditory sensation is very important. So think about it always from the perspective of what are my senses doing, and are they doing it all at the same time? And we've got to do our best to keep it as minimalistic and as consistent as possible. So solid colors, because then our mind only has to deal with one color, therefore not trying to process color, sound, different pictures on the wall, and so on and so forth. So our environment and the senses that are triggered by the environment are the ways in which we have to consider how to work well with our neurodivergent individuals.
Wow. I want to get a little bit practical because everything that you're saying makes so much sense. Perhaps, I don't know, let me make an example with the classroom, right? Because children are so precious.
Of course.
Let's talk about just some of the common design mistakes that people make unknowingly, when it comes to overstimulating the brain. Perhaps the classroom can be a fun example. Just spaces in the home, the home where we spend a lot of time. So what are the common mistakes in those environments?
Perfect. Okay, well, in that regard, Mmatsheko, what I would always recommend for teachers and even parents within the home environment is do your best to not have contrasting colors next to each other. Again, from a visual stimulating perspective, if we have bright orange and bright green, for example, on the same wall, then the ability for a child, again, within a classroom in particular, to process these two contrasts, to make sense of them, and still take in information that the teacher is saying is too much all at once. So if we can, let's keep it, like I mentioned, very solid colors. So colors that are very calming, that are very soothing, and not too heightened in their experience. So if we have solid yellows, if we have, neutral colors as well, it just allows the brain to really take in more of what is pertinent and necessary versus trying to calibrate everything and anything. So that would be in the school environment. So the colors in the environments, the ways in which we're decorating in our rooms should not be cluttered. It should be simplistic. It should be as much as possible solid, and where we can, have them flow into each other so that it's more of a hue that moves in as opposed to stark experiences. Now, within the home environment, I think in that regard, let's just really be very cognizant of noise levels, right? Because depending on where it is, particularly on the autism spectrum, if a child is more so low functioning versus high functioning, that particular stimuli, if it is too high, so the rooms are too loud insofar as we're playing music in one room, people are shouting in another room, or whatever else might be, the body and the child tends to kind of tense up a little bit more. Because again, think about it, how it would feel if you had all of your senses sparked up all at once, simultaneously on 100. It can feel overwhelming, and then the tensing within the child many other problems. So we just have to really work to the best of our abilities to keep any and all sensory triggers at a very minimum, or if we have to move from one trigger to the next, be very introductory about it. Okay, kids, we're about to now move into this section of the classroom where we're moving from orange to green, or within the home environment, we're saying, okay, kids, now it's time for lunchtime. It's time for lunch, or, we're going to be having just free time. Let us close all of our laptops and let's go into the lounge so we can all watch TV together. So we were better introducing the transitions from one space to the other. It gives the neurodivergent individual the opportunity to process the fact that change is coming. And with that change, it's not something that they need to be prepared for and fight and tense up, but they can put themselves into a better soothing position to allow point A to move comfortably into point B, then point B into point C. So the transition is something that teachers, parents, and caregivers alike can just be really, really cognizant of, where we're moving in a slow pace versus being stark and very hard on it.
I wonder then, Nomsa, how do we go about starting these conversations with especially African parents, where for them it may seem like, no man, you're just being extra. There's no need for all these extra things that you're talking about. How do we go about starting that conversation, especially from an African perspective?
Yeah. It's always just a conversation of just normalizing the experience. I think the biggest thing that any human being is afraid of is that they are different, they are othered, and therefore they are wrong in whatever capacity. Excuse me. So what that then speaks to more than anything else is being in a very well-rounded and empowered space of getting the right education and information from individuals such as myself or other remediated educators who can give you the facts of the matter. So as an African individual, a black household, it's to understand that the more information that you have by getting the right resources in your back pocket, then you're able to learn the language which is suited for the home. Again, I think sometimes what we find is when we have bombasticated words that speak to this, that, and the other, it can be exceptionally intimidating, and then we avoid it. But the moment we're able to just kind of sit down and understand what the experience of autism within the Hatebe household looks like, or the Mhlanga household looks like, then we're more capable of making sure that the situation is more so assimilated within our environment versus us having to change ourselves to fit whatever peg hole might exist. But that always comes with, first of all, understanding what you're attending to, and that speaks to speaking to individuals who are well-rounded in the conversation. You are not wrong as the parent. The child is not wrong for what it is they are working through. If we understand why and in what way you can present, then how it is we work through it will be a much easier conversation.
Oh man, I wish we had more time because I've got just so much concern around shared spaces. The schools, the hospitals, even the office spaces. But I think we'll pick up this conversation another time. Thank you so much, Nomsa Balesakhatebe, educational psychologist. Perhaps just a quick reference before we go to the sports desk. Where can we go for more information? I mean, is there an open resource that anyone can access with good information?
So, I mean, it very definitely does vary from individual to individual. So what I would always kind of recommend that individuals kind of do is speak more so from a face-to-face perspective. So, I mean, go to your local clinics. There are those direct individuals who are able to speak to you word for word, but there are also autism, particularly spectrum websites that are easy to kind of look up for. So, and depending on where it is you are within the geography, then you are more than able to just kind of quickly autism awareness, and it should show you in your particular locale where and with whom you can have direct conversation with. But our clinics, our remedial schools also often have to have all of the information that you require.
All right. Thank you once again. Thank you so much, Nomsa. This was very enlightening. I certainly learned a lot about really how to just not only consciously living, but just to include neurodivergent individuals in the conversation. 1:31 is the time right now. Hey, Figilele Ngwadi, what's happening on the sports desk?
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And a very good afternoon from the sports desk. I am Mosibudi Makura with your latest sports news at the Sawa. So we'll start with this story. So Coach Desiree Ellis, the head coach of the South African women's national football team, Banyana, says they are ready for the opening match against Ghana in the 2024 Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament. The game between the African champions as well as the Black Queens is set to take place at the Honor Stadium in Uja later on tonight. Kick-off is at 6 p.m. Central African time. Ellis speaking about the importance of starting this campaign on a winning note.
Look, in 2018 and 2022 we had really good starts with good wins both against Nigeria, and that set the tone for the rest of the tournament, and this one is no different. To be able to get a positive result. We know Ghana did not come to the 2022 tournament, but without a doubt they are powerhouse in women's football. When you look at the players playing in good clubs around the world, it says the quality that they have, and they are back, and we cannot underestimate them. If you look at the last 6 months, they've changed coaches, but yet you still see the quality, the international friendlies they've played.
Meanwhile, Ghana is returning to the tournament for the very first time since 2018. The head coach of the side, Kim Lars Bush, again says even though they are not favourites to win this title, he does believe they have the quality to beat all of the teams in this year's competition.
A little bit of an underdog or a dark horse. We are not one of the biggest favourites that people are talking about, but I know that we have the quality in this group to beat all of the teams in this tournament. So I'm really looking forward to start tomorrow, and I think we can have a really good chance to be successful.
Meanwhile, the second match of Group C that gets underway at 9 p.m. Central African time today, we'll get to see the 2018 semi-finalists Mali taking on the East African side, Tanzania. So the two teams having faced off back in 2010 when Tanzania played at their very first Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament, with the West Africans also emerging as the victors following a 3-2 win in a closely contested second match in Group A back in 2010. So a lot has changed since then. Mali missed the next two editions before returning to the WAFCON tournament back in 2016 in Equatorial Guinea, where they did also not make it past the group stages. Les Eagles then went on to reach the semi-finals 2 years later in Ghana in 2018, where they eventually finished in fourth, their highest finish in the history of the continental competition. For Tanzania, this is their first return to the continent's biggest showpiece since 2010. That match will be played at the Stade Municipal de Pakan, kick-off 9 p.m. Central African time. On to some cricket news now. Vian Mulder continued to break a slew of records. This as he became just the second South African to score a Test triple century, with him ending with an unbeaten 367 runs, as the Proteas declaring on 626 for the loss of 5 wickets at lunch on day 2 of the second Test against Zimbabwe at the Queen's Club Sports in Bulawayo earlier. So other records that Mulder has passed, including him now becoming just the first South African now, or rather is now the South African record individual run scorer in Test matches, passing Hashim Amla's unbeaten 311, this against England back in 2012, while he is also now the 5th highest score in Test match history. So only Brian Lara, Matthew Hayden, Mahela Jawardena have scored more in Test matches, and it's a surprise the Proteas decided to declare at lunch with over just 3.5 days of the match still to go, which would then have given Mulder plenty of time to become the second batter in Test history to score a potential 400 runs. Earlier, Mulder had become the 29th player this to score a Test triple century, the 33rd to score over 300 in total, with Lara, Don Bradman, Chris Gale, as well as Virender Sehwag also having scored 2 triple hundreds. At the moment, it is Zimbabwe on 30 for the loss of 3 wickets this after 10 overs. Of course, still chasing a mammoth 626 runs, trailing South Africa by 596 runs. And finally, in case you missed it, NBA star Kevin Durant has joined the Houston Rockets from the Phoenix Suns in a record-breaking trade deal involving 7 teams. The move was first announced just last month, but was confirmed on Sunday when the league's new year officially started. The Atlanta Hawks, the Brooklyn Nets, the Golden State Warriors, the Minnesota Timberwolves, as well as the Los Angeles Lakers were also involved in this deal, which involves 13 players and several future draft picks being also exchanged. The previous record for the largest trade in NBA history was 6 teams that was set in September of last year when Klay Thompson joined the Dallas Mavericks. Durant was named the 2014 Most Valuable Player, also went on to win 2 NBA titles with the Golden State Warriors, and is also a 15-time All-Star winner. He also won 4 Olympic golds with the USA basketball team. The time is 13:37 p.m. Central African time, and concludes your sports news this hour. I'm back with more sporting updates in the next hour. Meanwhile, for any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosito Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. In this episode of Channel Africa Conversations, Peter talks to Dr. Thulisile Buddha, an academic, author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems. Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era. Dr. Thulisile unpacks the role of educators, explorers, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage. You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za. This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across across the continent. Channel Africa, the African perspective. The Upside. On the Upside, your voice matters.
38 minutes after 1 p.m. Central African Time. Let's say good afternoon and welcome to The Upside to Chanduko Ligege, who has your latest in business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Tebogo, and good afternoon. Nigerian banks have resumed the use of Naira debit cards for international transaction and online payments more than 3 years after financial institutions suspended the service due to acute dollar shortages. The move by the bank signals improved dollar availability following reforms under President Bola Tinubu, who in June 2023 scrapped currency controls, increasing the flow of dollars into the economy. GT Bank, which is among the largest by market value, says Naira debit cards can now be used with a limit of $1,000 a quarter. According to the bank, the quarterly limit covers all transactions, including ATM cash withdrawals, purchases on international websites, point-of-sale payments outside Nigeria, and many more. South Africa's Minister of Transport, Barbara Creecy, says a functional transport system is important. She says that the integrated transport system of the country needs to be planned, designed, operated and maintained in such a manner that long-term economic growth and development of South Africa can be achieved and sustained. She was speaking at the 4-day Southern African Transport Conference currently taking place in the capital, Pretoria. She says the country is continually improving its transport systems.
In addition to the work we're doing in rail, we're also trying to upgrade the access network of airports. One of the things we've seen is the dramatic revival of aviation after the COVID pandemic. And we are seeing that there's increasing appetite for air transport, but there's also increasing appetite for air freight.
The South African National Civic Organization, SANCO, has paid tribute to the late Deputy President of South Africa, David Mabuza. The civic organization stated that Mabuza was central to the Ministerial Committee on Electricity, assisting to improving the energy crisis that is impacting the country's economy. SANCO Treasurer Judith Nematsinga Shabalala says the former deputy president has played a pivotal role during his tenure on his national crisis.
He was one man given the task. The issues of ESCOM, as part of the person was doing oversight, being a whip in that committee, Comrade Mabuza was very close to that issue. In fact, that's how the Interministerial Committee and the president was able to ensure that, and Comrade Mabuza was quite central to that issue.
The legal, psychological and employment implications of over-indebtedness cannot be ignored. That's according to Associate in Employment Law at Cliff Decker Hofmeyr in South Africa, Malisela Litwaba. Speaking to the SABC News, Litwaba explains how excessive debt has been linked to deteriorating mental health, impaired decision-making and diminished functional capacity. Litwaba explains.
Employees with changing times, rising inflation, and the demand for more wants tend to over-indebt themselves or become financially overstretched. And as a result, when they are unable to meet their financial commitments, it has a knock-on effect on their ability to perform at work, mainly because they are stressed out in that they cannot meet their financial obligations.
Oil prices briefly fell slightly this morning after OPEC Plus accelerated output hikes and raised concerns about oversupply. OPEC Plus announced their decision on Saturday to increase oil output by 548,000 barrels per day in August. According to a statement on the OPEC website, the decision was made after the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and their allies, a group known as OPEC Plus, reviewed global market conditions and outlook. Nolthando Magudulela reports.
On Monday morning, Brent crude futures fell 67 cents following the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and their allies' agreement on Saturday to raise production in August. This decision will further accelerate output since oil prices jumped and then retreated following Israeli and U.S. attacks on Iran. The increase in August represents monthly increases of 411,000 barrels approved by OPEC Plus for May, June, and July.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 527, Botswana 13 pula 10, Kenya the dollar is at 128 shilling 545, Zambia 24 kwacha 18. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 42, in Russia 78 ruble 69, India 84 rupee 98, China 71.16, South Africa 17 rand 56 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $3,306, platinum at $1,360 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $68.81 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
Matuka Wanji Nonse, Zukani, the Shy Guy, a Morning Switch.
Have you ever listened to a song and then it gives you goosebumps? Because it takes you way back in the 80s. My goodness. Yay. Woo. Hey, baby. You hear Yvonne Chaga Chaga there. I want to talk to the DJ. And then the DJ goes like, hey, baby, I've got you on the other side. Huh? There were no WhatsApps then, right? There were no sliding in the DMs at the time. Oh, man.
Your weekend mornings are activated with the Shy Guy on the Morning Switch. Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective. If it's news and current affairs, leading opinions, and thought leaders that get your groove, this is your home, The Upside.
Thank you very much for staying with us on The Upside as we look at all things lifestyle, really, between now and 4 p.m. in Central African time. My name is Mmatsheko Mosito. And I'm not alone. I've got Tebogo Lekhuleni as well, who is running this kingdom. Thank you very much for joining us. It's always just such a pleasure. We continue our conversation looking at neurodivergent minds, but this time around we really are going to be expanding in conversation, looking at folklore on film, Mzansi marvels, and African myths reimagined.
Imagine that. We are going to be chatting with an award-winning film director. He's one of the continent's most dynamic storytellers, bringing folklore, family, and freedom to the screen. From Shaga Ilembe to Jewel, his work pulses with history and heart. His name is Adze Uga. Adze, thank you so much for your time and welcome to The Upside.
Good morning and good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Lovely having you. I tell you what, I'm very excited to have this conversation with you about storytelling, African folklore. When we talk about African folklore, are we where we need to be in terms of telling our authentic African stories instead of just creating these Marvel characters that we see in the Western Hemisphere? Where are we at in terms of telling our own authentic African stories?
Well, I can safely say we have a long way to go. But having said that, I can also say that we've come a long way. We've made leaps and bounds in exploring, our legacies, our ethnicities, and our just basically the things that we grew up appreciating as stories and as folklore. And the reality of the matter is that as a continent, we have had the misfortune of having to always appreciate the stories of others. Instead of ours first. Yeah. So and it's a consequence of so many things, and that's not the reason why we're having this conversation. But the reality is that real progress can only be made if there is a concerted effort to see our stories as actually the only option in existence in terms of advancement towards storytelling.
I love that.
Right. I want to talk about you for a second, Mr. Adze, because much of your work actually is just such a beautiful and fine bridge between ancestral and contemporary, which is just such a beautiful space to traverse in contemporary African spaces. So how do you navigate that balance between the traditional and the modern way of storytelling?
That's a very interesting question, and thank you for that. And there really is no hard and fast answer. My approach has always been that, my strongest point, right, if you want to talk about what has influenced me more than anything else in this life or in this world, it's my family. My family is the beginning and end of my life, as it is the beginning and end of most people's lives as well. So in terms of telling stories, whether they are set, in ancient times or in contemporary times, one just basically has to put himself in the shoes of the characters as one would if they were in those situations. And you'll discover that the parallels are very, very similar. You'll discover that, if a character in ancient times is heartbroken, it's not too different from how a character will be heartbroken in contemporary times. It literally is about, wearing the shoes of the character, given the context that you're in. Because when you think about it, if you ask anybody 100 years ago, if they believe they were in ancient times, they'll tell you, no, we're not in ancient times, we're now. So just like somebody, if you ask them in 20 years from now, whether we are in ancient times, and they'll probably tell you yes, but we will say no, we're not in ancient times. Our time is now. So basically, the trick is to literally contextualize the situation and apply it to yourself and to what you know is common and what you know is present, and you'll discover that there really isn't much of a difference. What will be different would be, of course, the settings, the environment, and most likely wardrobe, makeup, and technology, per se. But apart from that, it's literally one and the same.
We are currently in conversation with award-winning film director Adze Uga about reimagining African myth, Mzansi marvels, African folklore, bringing that onto the screen, and perhaps more projects that will allow us to see our continent for what it really is and where we can be. And we'll continue the conversation right after this.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. No matter where you are, Channel Africa is always with you. We are on OpenView's audio bouquet. Channel 628. Let the upside transport you from Cape to Cairo every weekday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time.
All right, it is now 8 minutes before 2 p.m. Central African Time. This past weekend, we were watching Italy go up against the Springboks, a rusty performance, but they won nonetheless. That's the Springboks. Mzansi, this is more than just a game. For many of you who watch rugby, it's a celebration of history. 30 years ago, the Springboks united our nation with that iconic Rugby World Cup victory, and now the mighty Boks are back. Don't miss South Africa versus Italy in the 30th anniversary commemoration match this Saturday on the 12th of July at 4 p.m. Central African Time. Watch it live on SABC2 or stream it anywhere on the SABC Plus app. Download the SABC Plus app today on iOS or Android or your smart TV. Switch to stream, no subscription. SABC Sport, for the love of the game. We are still in conversation with Adze. Adze, we've heard the stories about the shakas of the world. Are there any characters that have not been brought to life on film yet that you still want to explore?
There's a lot. Mosito's story is one that needs to be told. Faku's, story of Makondo needs to be told as well. The story of Mapungubwe needs to be told.
Oh, that's
the
my
story,
favorite. I'm holding
Yeah.
my breath for that one. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yes, the Timbuktu story needs to be told, in northern Central Africa. There's just so many. But let me say something that might actually shed some more light into what I feel maybe might help us position how these stories can be a concerted goal for everybody. When you watch, for example, the Marvel movies, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
the Americans have popularized them so much.
Yeah.
And of course, what they've done is they've gone, quite hyper real, and you have characters who are meant to be who are positioned to be superhuman. They can fly, they can jump over several buildings. They have the strength of 100 men. But at the core of all of those Marvel stories, right, are simple universal themes and issues.
Yeah.
Now, what Marvel did was basically quote the father and son relationship with these superhero stories. So when you dig deep into them, you'll discover that it's actually just men dealing with father issues across the board in some shape or form. And so it's not just a spectacle of explosions and bright lights and all kinds of fabulous things that make you go wow.
Yeah.
At the core of these stories are the human stories, are the things that connect us all. So whether you're in China, whether you're in India, whether you're in Africa, when you watch these films, you connect at that human emotional level. And I feel that is what we need to do with our stories. So it's not just really about Mapungubwe or Timbuktu or Moshweshwe or just thinking about the big concepts. It's about distilling and finding what is really the story. What is Moshweshwe dealing with in terms of his relationship with his father, his mother, and his people? It's about finding that thing that you and I can find commonality with. And that is what connects everybody. And if we can tell these stories, right, from that point of view, then it's very easy for them to travel beyond just the shores of this country. Then they're not just historical pieces, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They're universal stories that speak to everybody as well. So the same way, right, somebody will appreciate it in China, somebody will appreciate it also in Latin America, because the themes that are really being dealt with, that are just, sugar-coated with the big spectacles, of the large sets and the historical backgrounds, of large hordes of maybe armies or of humanity.
Yeah.
That's just the window dressing. At the core of it will be the story that we know connects us all as human beings. And that is the issue with Africa. The issue with Africa is that almost everybody wants to see an African story if it only involves a king or a slave or a warrior. But what about the people who are in the middle? Many of us as human beings are in the middle, if you know what I mean. We're not kings, we're not warriors, and we're not superhuman as well. But we have feelings, we have things that basically unify us and unite us, and we're dealing with on a daily basis. So it's about getting those sort of stories out there. It's about making people value even the most ordinary of African stories and African conditions.
Right.
And I think that's what the West has succeeded in doing. They've made us more or less appreciate just the life of one of their own. And we need to get to a point whereby we can appreciate even the least amongst us, to attach value even to the least amongst us. And then that story, of course, can be amplified. And I think that's really the way to go about pushing the agenda or pushing the narrative, because you want to get to that point whereby everybody in the world, not just us, everybody in the world can come across a story about an African and go, okay, this matters, because what they're dealing with or what they're trying to address in the story also concerns me.
Right. Look, I just have a comment. First of all, we are talking to film director, award-winning film director. That prefix is very important, Adze Uga. But I think
I'm not so sure, but thank you.
you speak it's very wholesome, your approach to this work, because I think you mentioned so many important things in your response there about, many of our African stories having been told through the colonial lens, And you've literally taken this responsibility as a director to reimagine and retell the stories in the now, in the way that they matter most, and in a way that will outlive all of us in the future, which is so beautiful. But just a final thought from you, perhaps, in terms of just what people can look forward to, perhaps on Shaka Ilembe and any other work that you're producing at this time.
Okay, well, let me start by saying that I wish I could take responsibility and say that I was the one who more or less charted this course towards where we are right now from a filmmaking point of view. I want to humbly say I was just lucky.
Oh, you're a fine contributor, sir. We declare it so.
Oh, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. But I really feel it has more to do with yes, just being at the right place at the right time and having to have had, so many experiences and also interactions with so many wonderful people who believe that, you have something to contribute to the plate. And scale of things. And so that's basically it. And the credit basically of where we are right now in terms of what Shaka is doing actually goes to the team. It goes to our executive producers, Desiree McGrath and Angus Gibson, and of course multi-chairs that basically, trusted that yes, this story needed to be told and basically pumped resources into making it. Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of bravery and that kind of courage is really commendable. And basically what we're saying is that, if we can do it in this scale, we can keep on doing it more and more and more. So for me, right, the big thing about Shaka Ilembe is that it should be the show that launches 1,000 more shows like it, if you know what I mean. That is what it needs to be. It's a flagship, and it has to be that all over the continent, African continent, producers and investors, and also broadcasters should have the courage to say, what, we want to actually go big. We don't want to go home. We want to go big. So therefore, let's push and actually, pump resources into making something formidable that would outlive us and to set a benchmark for others to also match and equally exceed. So that's kind of, my appreciation of this whole space now, that after Shaka Ilembe, there shouldn't be a decline. There should be more Shaka Ilembes from virtually all corners of the continent, in whatever shape or form.
We're going to have to cut you there, but thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Incredible work that you're doing. May your star continue to shine on the screens. That's the voice of Adze Uga, award-winning film director. It is now 1 minute after 2 p.m. Central African time. Let's get the latest news.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Before looking at your top stories, Kenya police fire tear gas and water cannons on an anniversary of pro-democracy protests, and Botswana to ship more doses of foot-and-mouth disease shots to South Africa. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. Kenyan police have fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse protesters in the capital, Nairobi, as they mark the 35th anniversary of pro-democracy rallies. Activists rally every year on the 7th of July to mark the date in 1990 when opponents of then-President Daniel Arap Moi launched a bid to transform the country into a multi-party democracy. The protest is called Saba Saba 77 in Kiswahili because of the date. Channel Africa correspondent in Kenya, Alex Schiari.
The Saba Saba protests that were done in 1990 were, in a way, a violation of the then constitution that banned more political parties in the country. But now the advocates for the same were pushing for the introduction of multi-party democracy, which was realized 2 years after the initial protest. And this time round, the young generation, which we call the Gen Zs, who have now partnered with the other generations, they call them Gen Zote, which means all generations, are pushing for an end to violations relating to human rights, and also they are also pushing for the right to be allowed to protest as it is allowed in the Constitution of Kenya.
The Section 59 investigation panel into allegations of racial discrimination by medical schemes against black healthcare providers in South Africa has concluded that the procedures implemented by the schemes violated the rights of procedural fairness of some individual practitioners. This was revealed by the panel during a media briefing in Pretoria today. The panel was set up in 2019 following allegations by black healthcare providers that they were being discriminated against by medical schemes and administrators, and their claims were being withheld based on their race and ethnicity. The chairperson of the panel, Advocate Tembeka Nqoitobi.
We have found that the current procedures that were at play as at 2019, which was the cutoff date for our investigations, violate the right to procedural fairness of individual practitioners. And as I say, we've considered in detail the explanations and the justifications given by the schemes, but we have not changed that finding.
South Africa's National Congress Party's National Executive Committee member David Mahlabo says most ANC comrades who served with the former Deputy President David Mabuza are still in shock over his passing. Mabuza died at the age of 64 in hospital last Thursday. Mahlabo has joined the Executive Council of the provincial government to pay homage to the Mabuza family. Mahlabo says they had hoped his health will fully recover.
Most of us are still reeling with shock. We never believed that this time will arrive at a time when all of us had hoped that Deputy President Mabuza was feeling much better. And it was all of a sudden. But we've come to terms now that he has played his part. We must allow him to rest. There are many memories that we are going to cherish. At an individual level, a number of us, when the ANC was unbanned.
Botswana Vaccine Institute is expected to ship the remaining 400,000 doses of foot-and-mouth disease shots to South Africa by the end of this month. South Africa purchased 900,000 doses of FMD vaccine from Botswana, and the landlocked country has since delivered the initial 500 doses towards the tail of last month. In addition to selling the vaccine to South Africa, BVI Chief Executive Officer Andrew Madeswi says that Botswana is offering South Africa's Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, with the necessary expertise.
The Botswana Vaccine Institute is committed to assist our country, and not only that, we are also pledging that support to our neighboring countries in managing and eradicating FMD. We would like to reiterate that our expertise and resources are at the disposal of the region, including South Africa, to safeguard the livestock industry, which is crucial to the livelihood of many across the African continent. We are looking at supplying the second consignment of 400,000 doses by the end of this particular month of July.
And lastly, police in Pakistan have arrested the owners of a pet lion that attacked a woman and her 3 children after it escaped. Dramatic CCTV footage from the eastern city of Lahore showed how the big cat leaped over a concrete wall and chased the woman down as terrified onlookers ran for safety. Authorities say the woman and her children, aged 5 and 7, sustained injuries to their arms and faces but are now in stable condition. The lion was captured and moved to a wildlife park. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Ntsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Well, it's 7 minutes after 2 p.m. Central African time. Welcome to the second hour of The Upside on Channel Africa, the African perspective, with me, Tebogo, Lekhuleni, and Mmatsheko Mosito, with you all the way to 4 p.m. Central African time. We're coming to you live from the Auckland Park Studios in Johannesburg, South Africa. And you can stream us live on our social media platforms, so you can check out our lovely studio and the presenters as well at Channel Africa on Facebook and YouTube. YouTube is where you can also find us. And if you have DSTV, it's channel 802, OpenView, channel 628. And as always, you can download the SABC Plus app on your Android or iOS device and take us with you wherever you go. We continue our conversation in this hour. Neurodivergency. But now we want to make it practical. Designing spaces for them. Designing with intention. Whether it's an office space at home, we want to ensure that those who are under the umbrella of neurodivergency, they're not overly stimulated, but that the environment is calm, it's soothing, and ideal for them, who process stimuli a bit differently from what we would call typical or average people. So, practical applications. We'll be having a conversation with the CEO of Workshop 17, Paul Kirsten, about all of this. This is exciting, and we need this, right? You mentioned earlier how communal social spaces are not really designed for people with neurodivergency, and so this is going to be a very important conversation.
Listen, I'm loving today's theme around creating space, but also just being inclusive of all people when we do that, because I don't think we actually really think about these things when we go about how we design our business spaces, especially if we're going to welcome all kinds of people in our spaces. So it's going to be just such a wonderful conversation as we chat to the CEO of Workshop 70. Some great ideas might come from that, so I would hate for you to miss it. Stay with us.
I tell you what, who needs to listen to it? A marketing agency. Have you been to a marketing agency office?
Shocking.
All colors, all of them.
Shocking.
The spectrum of the rainbow. You'll find it there. Mzansi, this past weekend we were watching the Springboks go up against Italy. Let's get ready for round number 2. This is more than just a game. It's a celebration of history. 30 years ago, the Springboks united our nation with that iconic Rugby World Cup victory. And now the mighty Boks are back. Don't miss South Africa versus Italy in the 30th anniversary commemoration match this Saturday, the 12th of July at 4 p.m. Central African time. Watch it live on SABC2 or stream it anywhere on SABC Plus app. Download the SABC Plus app today on iOS or Android or your smart TV. Switch to stream, no subscription. SABC Sport, for the love of the game.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Hawa wa Afrika Kusini wenye asili ya kizungu ambao wamepewa ukimbizi huko nchini Marekani. Je, nini chanzo cha wao kuomba ukimbizi nchini Marekani?
Wenyewe wajaomba ukimbizi. Kuna shirika fulani inaitwa AfriForum, shirika mbili za wazungu ambao wanatetea haki ya wazungu hapa, AfriForum na Solidarity. Hao walienda Marekani kufanya kampeni kusema kwamba wazungu wananyanyaswa hapa Afrika Kusini, na walivyofanya hiyo kampeni, serikali iweze kuwafuatilia kujua nini ambacho mnasema kwamba mnanyanyaswa.
Kuna namna ya wao kwamba wamepoteza uraia wa Afrika Kusini, na je, endapo Trump akamaliza muda wake madarakani, uhalali wao wa kuishi nchini Marekani ukoje?
Itakuwa vigumu, kifupi itakuwa vigumu wenyewe kupoteza uraia wao.
Darubini ya Afrika 11 kamili hadi 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Channel Africa, your voice, your sound, and your home. Stay logged right here. Your afternoons are even better, fresh and exciting. The Upside, hooking you up with today's news from an African perspective.
Champesha champonya na pamukusao ili ashira mifwalile bane awe nalishupa ngo wafwalanga James Sakala abati yori wakale kanwa maguchi na mavesashi abanyoli awe nishwa kusumina na konsole abakashana baleti ngawafwale chitenge yeye bachikula bwangu kumwena muichi kwembe maliposa bachikula bwangu kumwena mo nomba kafwale shani kumakonka fualeshani kumakuweba kafualeshani pamulungu kafualeshani
nawadezi valambona fembulinga na popo katiyo wapachamboli valensa rushankotiza inosha chikalambana sana tishamayo mfala mapedo mfale garagata mfale mariposa mfale bemuda
Numbers fala dio Jordan Good look nice Nike
down mfala sati ni dedi yo tosa nikabane fefeni fyo ndekeni nyamwine nkwanisha moyo mwali mpata igo party na garagata Budo don't judge me because I don't wear Versace Gucci whatever you call it Budo not umone kemba batunza pato fwele barakata na polishi vino nzwele naonekani ngosile nene monsi mwe mwanche badi mwe maizi na Nike tefya kuline fwale mpapapa ya chifulile
bachikula bwangu kumwena muiti kwembe maliposa bachikula bwangu kumwena mo nomba kafualeshani kumakonka fualeshani kumakuweba kafualeshani pamulungu kafualeshani
nawadezi valambona fembulinga na popo katiyo wapachamboli valensa rushankotiza inosha chikalambana sana tishamayo mfala mapedo mfale garagata mfale mariposa mfale bemuda
Numbers fala dio Jordan Good look nice Nike look nice Ela yama tungen salon kakengo west katinje chalo Gana sona boringo ninjiala sanda ya kalofasat Eko tuale fwala bemuda na garagata Natangali kufayo kubalakata Etolo sipe pekale nintumbila la yama tapekale Sona Nike ya mukomfana Gachite vyati kuntwana Mufiri mbana titenge matirio mimonekele fyapesile mkoja kilo
bachikula bwangu kumwena muiti kwembe maliposa bachikula bwangu kumwena mo nomba kafualeshani kumakonka fualeshani kumakuweba kafualeshani pamulungu kafualeshani
nawadezi valambona fembulinga na popo katiyo wapachamboli valensa rushankotiza inosha chikalambana sana tishamayo mfala mapedo mfale garagata mfale mariposa mfale bemuda
Numbers fala dio Jordan Good look nice Nike look nice
16 minutes after 2 p.m. Central African Time. Dior by Chandan K. Music coming to you from Zambia, featuring James Sakala. Welcome to the Upside on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. We're coming to you live from the Auckland Park Studios in Johannesburg, South Africa. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. And you can stream us live on our social media platforms at Channel Africa on Facebook and YouTube. Let's continue our conversation. The focus was neurodiversity, but now we want to practically apply it in our living spaces, in our workspaces, and we've got just the right person to do that.
We're going to stimulate the imagination a bit. So from solo entrepreneurs to corporate teams, our next guest believes creativity thrives when space supports diversity. And that, of course, includes neurodiversity. He's not just designing offices, he's also creating spaces of possibility So his name is Paul Kirsten. He is joining us in his capacity as CEO and co-founder of Workshop 17, which is a trailblazing network of co-working spaces across South Africa that that's about people, I beg your pardon, people, innovation, as well as inclusivity at the heart of what they do when we look at design. It is a pleasure to welcome you on the show, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me, and good afternoon to you and your listeners.
Thank you. What does designing for intention mean to you as we unpack modern workspaces?
It's really designing with people and the users at heart. It's not about designing from a brand. Even for us at Workshop 17, we don't want to put our brand out. Our brand is actually the background, and we provide the platform and environment for our members, the companies that are with us, to shine, to thrive, to innovate. So it's really about putting yourself a little bit to the background. It's not about the designer or the operator. It's about the people that use it. What makes them feel welcome? What makes them feel to want to leave the home office and come to their company or shared office? What gets them into traffic and what makes them feel a sense of belonging and a sense of comfort that entices them to actually share, to be vulnerable, to put themselves out there, to do something more than the usual.
We are currently in conversation with the CEO of Workshop 17, Paul Kirsten, about designing for intention. Perhaps you have been thinking about designing your workspaces to ensure that it is inclusive, accommodates everyone, and you don't know where to start. Well, Paul is the right person to help lead us in this conversation. We'll continue the conversation with him right after we take a quick break. If you have any questions for Paul about designing for intention, whether it's the workspace, whether at home, or even in the classroom as well, drop us a WhatsApp, +27 63 406 9126.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The president of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, BADEA, Dr. Sidi Ould Tah, he is vying for the presidency of the African Development Bank, the AFDB. He positions himself as a fervent defender of economic integration and structural transformation on the African continent.
So I do believe that I have a 360 view of the development challenges in the continent with my experience from both the supply side and the demand side. But more importantly, my vision is to bring on board all the stakeholders and to have a holistic approach for the development of the continent and to develop partnership across the continent and outside the continent, bringing all the stakeholders together to work for one goal is to make Africa green for life and livelihood of the African population.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Call us on +27 63 406 9126.
I can see my whole world changing.
And contribute to the conversation. Whatever you want to hear about today's talk, you can only get it on the Upside. Every weekday, 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, we are designing spaces for intention with CEO of Workshop 17, Paul Kirsten, and he's helping us unpack and better understand how we can go about designing spaces to ensure that they are inclusive and accommodating for all types of needs in the workspaces, also in the homes as well. Paul, how do these subtle environmental cues like lighting, layout, how do they shape team behavior and culture? Because these are things that we often overlook and hardly pay attention to.
And I think I want to pick out one element that's very crucial. And we design dedicated offices, 1 person, 5 person. We design a canteen or restaurant or lobby, but we don't often think about what happens between the spaces.
Yeah.
We think of a space as a continuum of spaces, almost as a landscape where individuals and team can move through. And if you think about critical things that happen at work or in life, it often happens by accident. You meet someone while you're ordering a coffee from the barista that's at Workshop 17, and you overhear a conversation next to you, and you think, oh, that's interesting, let me talk to this person. Or we create like little squares where offices are not in a long passageway, which becomes very impersonal on either side.
Yeah.
But there's like meeting spaces in the middle where you actually can touch down, and maybe there's a couch there or a phone booth where you can have some privacy. But what happens then is, do you create these areas where you can have what we call accidental meetings? Because often those little encounters are what can spark something really, really critical and really, really important in life later on. That's one thing. But also think about lighting. Lots of offices have very harsh, cold light, very strong. It doesn't make you feel welcome. It makes you feel that you serve the office and you serve the space. You try to turn that around. What is the lighting levels like? Or acoustic, for instance. If acoustic is bad, people get tired very quickly. You don't really understand why you get tired, but you do. Or the food that you offer on site, does it make you tired or sink in after lunch, or does it energize you? And let me give you an example that we don't have, but it's a cue that many people know. It is clocking in and clocking out at an office or the factory. And I've seen it in one of my first jobs when I was working at a factory. People needed to clock out by 4 o'clock. But what happens is people queue from 3:30 to 3:45 already to clock out at 4.
Yeah.
So they get the signal, you need to be out by 4 and actually stop working before. It's based on the idea that work stops when you're out and it starts when you enter. And that the whole time is productive. And I think it's the misconception that time is the most important thing instead of energy, passion, creativity, knowledge that you bring to your everyday work.
I really love how you are taking us into the space of understanding how design actually influences emotional regulation and mental clarity. Paul, I really appreciate that. But I want us to look at just the future of this work. And look at, we know that remote work is here to stay, right? So what do you see in the future of co-working spaces? Do you see us cultivating it more into a wellness hub? Because I'm learning so much in what you're saying. It goes beyond just neurodivergent individuals. I think for everyone, just being inclusive of how we look at space, and you speak of, just lighting and all the other elements that come into creating a space. So what does the future look like?
I think the future is already here, and remote working, as you said, is here to stay. The office is here to stay. People work in coffee shops. So the workplace is not one physical environment. It's not one address. It's actually a combination of all of that. And in that combination, an office or workspace like a Work 17 has a function, but it doesn't have the function to come in and sit on your own in a cubicle. What it does, and we've seen it in research during COVID, which was a great experiment in that sense of what remote working does. In the beginning, people felt very, very efficient. But after that, productivity stepped down because what lacks is those sparks that you get and inspiration that you get from meeting others. What lacks is the sense of belonging or the coordination between. And that's why at Workshop 17, we don't create a space for one company. We actually create a space for at least 80 companies at any one of our locations. Because that creates a diversity of ideas, of people to meet. And you belong to your company, but you also have colleagues beyond your own individual company that bring you something from a marketing perspective or legal perspective or technological perspective that actually enhances your thinking and crosses the boundaries of what you usually do. And that's what sparks innovation. Innovation is usually the linking of perspectives that haven't been connected before. And that comes back to these accidental meetings where you have a diverse community in a workspace. It gives you that input. And to the very, very practical level, what I heard people say, like, it's so good to be back at Workshop 17 because I'm tired of just talking about who's going to cook tonight, who's picking up the kids, and who's doing the shopping.
Paul, you mentioned these informal spaces where people end up meeting up in the corridors. But talk to us about the importance of having them and having designated areas for lounges, cafes, corridors, where they can spark innovation in those spaces.
Yeah. it is those natural meeting spaces that you have. If you think of a village, it used to have a town square. It has a church or a cafe or a bakery where people come together. And we try to almost emulate that in the workspace so it becomes natural. And when you feel natural, you feel at ease. And when you feel at ease, you feel ready to share or ready to communicate or ready to ask a question. And so these places are very important, almost dotted around. And if you look at for instance, open offices where people and some companies started to, they don't create that personal space or place where you feel comfortable. They create this almost like a factory feel of a lot of people sitting at desks where the smaller squares, a little lounge set, a lounge meeting room where you can reflect instead of sit at a table with a laptop. A coffee shop where there's a barista who knows your preference of coffee and tea instead of a machine with a button. It puts the personal touch in it. And that is where people are seen as people and individuals with all they have, and we know their daughter's birthday, and we know what happens in their life. So instead of coming into an office where there is a security guard checking if you're allowed to come in, there's a barista or hostess who say, how was your weekend? And how was the party of your daughter? It gives such a different sense. So all these things come together from the shifts, and this happens in those in-between spaces, as you said. And they are so critical for feeling human. Because work is not separate from life. Work and life actually happen at the same time. We spend so much time of our daily lives at work, sometimes more than at home. So that is part of life. It's not outside of life. So people want to feel alive. People want to feel recognized, appreciated. And that's what we do through the design of our spaces, but also through the hospitality elements that we try to bring in, just a human touch that people just need.
Okay. Well, man, this work must be very interesting for you and your team in terms of just learning how to merge so beautifully design and innovation in this manner, and considering mental wellness, creating safe spaces for people to enter, whether they're neurodivergent or not. So thank you very much, Paul Kirsten, CEO of Workshop 17. Where can we find your establishment?
We have 15 locations, of which 10 are in South Africa. We are in Ballito, we're in Joburg, and in Cape Town. We're also in Mauritius with 4 locations. So anyone who's just interested, even if you're not wanting to come in, just feel welcome to visit. You can find us at work17.co.za.
Okay.
You can walk in, a team member will gladly take you on, even just out of interest. So it's not a sales pitch as such, but we want people to be exposed to different ways of working, and we love to make a difference.
Oh, love that. Paul, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. The voice there of the CEO of Workshop 17, Designing for Intention, Paul Kirsten. It's 31 minutes after 2 p.m. Central African time. Musibudi Makura is standing by with the sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Tebogo. Good morning, or rather good afternoon once again from the sports desk. Let's start with some cricket news. So Vian Mulder earlier on today continued to break a slew of records as he became just the second South African to score a triple test century, with him ending unbeaten on 367 and the Proteas declaring on 625 for the loss of 5 wickets at lunch on day 2 of the second test against Zimbabwe, being played at the moment at the Queen's Sports Club in Bulawayo. So other records Mulder has passed include him now being South Africa's record individual run scorer in test matches, passing the great Hashim Amla, unbeaten at 311 against England that he set back in 2012, while he's now the 5th highest score in test match history. Only Brian Lara, Matthew Hayden, as well as Mahela Jayawardena have scored more in test matches, and it's a surprise that the Proteas decided to declare at lunch with just over 3.5 days of the match still to go, which would have given, of course, Mulder plenty of time to become the second batter in test history to potentially score 400. So earlier Mulder had also become the 29th player to score a test triple century, the 33rd to score over 300 in total, with Lara, Don Bradman, Chris Gale as well as Brenda Siwag also having scored 2 double, triple test centuries. At the moment, it is Zimbabwe all in trouble, 82 for the loss of 5 wickets. This after 23 overs, still trailing South Africa by a massive 544 runs. On to some football news now. Desiree Ellis says Banyana are ready for their opening match against Ghana in the 2024 CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament. The game between the African champions as well as the Black Queens of Ghana is set to take place at the Monir Stadium in Uja in Morocco this evening, with kickoff at 6 p.m. Central African time. So Ellis speaking about the importance of starting this campaign of the 2024 Women's Cup of Nations tournament with a win.
Look, in 2018 and 2022 we had really good starts with good wins both against Nigeria, and that set the tone for the rest of the tournament, and this one is no different. To be able to get a positive result, we know Ghana did not come to the 2022 tournament, but without a doubt they are powerhouse in women's football. You know, when you look at the players playing in good clubs around the world, it says the quality that they have, and they are back, and you know, we cannot underestimate them. If you look at the last 6 months, they've changed coaches, but yet you still see the quality, the international friendlies they've played.
Meanwhile, Ghana is returning to the tournament for the first time since they hosted this tournament in 2018. The head coach of the side, Kim Large Bojegen, says even though they are not regarded as the favourites to win this title, he does though believe they have the quality to beat all the teams at this year's tournament.
A little bit of an underdog or a dark horse. We are not one of the biggest favourites that people are talking about, but I know that we have the quality in this group to beat all of the teams in this tournament. So I'm really looking forward to start tomorrow, and I think we can have a really good chance to be successful.
On rugby news now, the Springbok women's coach Swez de Bruin has lamented the lack of clarity when it comes to the law, especially at the breakdown. So he was reacting after his team's 50-20 loss to the number 2 ranked team, Canada. That match was played at Loftus Versfeld in South Africa's capital city, Pretoria, over the weekend as they ramp up their preparations for the World Cup to be played in England in less than 50 days' time. De Bruin says they even had a former referee at training to help them understand the law, but they still got punished on the day.
Yeah, as I just said now, the breakdown was the biggest problem. And we had Alain Rumar there with us a couple of sessions to help us with the breakdown. And we spoke about and he showed clips, so it's right and it's wrong. But it's that interpretation that we got to sort out now. You know, are they going to blow it in the World Cup like that? Then we got to think totally different. There's no way you can go to ground then. But then if I watch men's rugby, normal rugby, if the plane lifts and then goes down, it's fine.
And finally, in boxing news, former multiple world champion Ricky Hatton has announced his return to boxing. So Hatton, who turns 46 in October, will fight the United Arab Emirates' Issa Al-Dar in a middleweight bout on the 2nd of December in Dubai. So organisers say the contest will be a professional bout, but it's still unclear if it will be fully sanctioned or if it will have conditions like the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight, where there was shorter rounds and a limit to the number of rounds that the boxers engaged in. So Hatton fought Marco Antonio Pereira in an exhibition match back in 2022. The fight was also announced during a show promoted by Al-Dai in Dubai on Sunday, with Hatton also confirming his return via live stream. So Hatton, by the way, won world titles at welterweight as well as light welterweight divisions. His announcement also comes just after Manny Pacquiao, 46 years of age, confirming his return, a title bout with WBC welterweight champion Mario Borges on the 19th of July. So it's interesting to see how many boxers now are coming out of retirement to get back into the ring. Well, that's a wrap from the sports desk at this hour. It's 14:37 p.m. Central African time. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Let the upside transport you from Cape to Cairo every weekday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time.
38 minutes after 2 p.m. Central African Time. Let's hand over the mic to Chandu Kuligege for business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Tebogo. Good afternoon. Nigerian banks have resumed the use of the Naira debit cards for international transactions and online payments more than 3 years after financial institutions suspended the service due to acute dollar shortages. The move by the banks signals improved dollar availability following reforms under President Bola Tinubu, who in June 2023 scrapped currency controls, increasing the flow of dollars into the economy. GT Bank, which is among the largest by market value, says Naira debit cards can now be used with a limit of $1,000 a quarter. According to the bank, the quarterly limit covers all transactions, including ATM cash withdrawals, purchases on international websites, point-of-sale payments outside Nigeria, and many more. Egypt's net foreign assets rose by $1.2 billion to $14.7 billion in May, approaching levels reached in March when the International Monetary Fund approved a $1.2 billion disbursement for the country. Egypt's net foreign assets, which include assets held by both the central bank and commercial banks, turned negative in February 2022 and only returned to positive territory in May last year. They had fallen by $1.5 billion in April to roughly $13.6 billion. The previous month, they had shot up to more than $15 billion after the IMF approved the disbursement following completion of a review of the country's $8 billion economic reform program. South Africa's Minister of Transport, Barbara Creecy, says a functional transport system is important. She says the integrated transport system of the country needs to be planned, constructed, operated, and maintained in such a manner that long-term economic growth and development in the country can be achieved and sustained. She was speaking at the 4-day Southern African Transport Conference currently taking place in the capital, Pretoria. She says the country is continually improving its transport systems.
In addition to the work we're doing in rail, we're also trying to upgrade the access network of airports. One of the things we've seen is the dramatic revival of aviation after the COVID pandemic. And we are seeing that there's increasing appetite for air transport, but there's also increasing appetite for air freight.
The South African National Civic Organization, SANCO, has paid tribute to the late Deputy President, David Mabuza. The civic organization stated that Mabuza was central to the Ministerial Committee on Electricity, assisting to improve the energy crisis that is impacting the country's economy. SANCO Treasurer Judith Nematsinga Chabalala says the former Deputy President has played a pivotal role during his tenure on this national crisis.
He was one man given the task. The issues of ESCOM, as part of the person was doing oversight, being a whip in that committee, Comrade Mabuza was very close to that issue. In fact, that's how the Interministerial Committee and the President was able to ensure that, and Comrade Mabuza was quite central to that issue.
Oil prices briefly fell slightly this morning after OPEC Plus accelerated output hikes and raised concerns about oversupply. OPEC Plus announced the decision on Saturday to increase oil output by 48,000 barrels per day in August. According to a statement on the OPEC website, the decision was made after the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and their allies, a group known as OPEC Plus, reviewed global market conditions and outlook. Notando Makudulela reports.
On Monday morning, Brent crude futures fell 67 cents following the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and their allies' agreement on Saturday to raise production in August. This decision will further accelerate output since oil prices jumped and then retreated following Israeli and US attacks on Iran. The increase in August represents monthly increases of 411,000 barrels approved by OPEC Plus for May, June, and July.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira, 527, Botswana 13 pula 10. Kenya the dollar is at 128 shilling, 545. Zambia 24 kwacha 18. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 42. Russia 78 rubles 69. India 84 rupee 98. China 71.16. South Africa 17 rand 56 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $3,306, platinum at $1,360 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $68.81 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binal Sport depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Midday vibes, great programming, and good company. This is Channel Africa. They talk about what Africans say about Africa. If it's news and current affairs, leading opinions, and thought leaders that get your groove, this is your home, The Upside.
Thank you for staying with us on The Upside. It's 2:45 p.m. Central African time, still in the golden hour of The Upside with Tebogo and Mmatsheko. And we are looking at what caught your eye. So we want to know what caught your eye. It's been a big weekend, definitely one for the history books. All kinds of things have been happening in Southern Africa, but let us know what's been happening in your part of the African region.
So, I didn't know this, and we said it earlier, that today is International Chocolate Day.
A whole World Chocolate Day.
Well, what is that? I personally still don't know why we have these interesting days, but nonetheless, it is World Chocolate Day today. And as the globe marks World Chocolate Day, more than half of the adult population in South Africa has eaten some form of chocolate in the past month. Where did they find this? I account to maybe 25% of that.
You had hot chocolate the other day.
Month.
Somebody told me you had hot chocolate.
I did. Chocolate occupies a unique position with emotional attachment. Now, to talk to us further about the day we love and our love for chocolate so much, we are now joined on the line by Andrew Fulton, the director of 8020. Andrew, thank you so much for your time and welcome to The Upside.
Thanks for having me on the show. Happy to be here.
World Chocolate Day. I mean, why are we celebrating it? No, it's a genuine question. Why are we celebrating World Chocolate Day, Andrew?
Why are we? I mean, the better question is why shouldn't we be celebrating? I mean, what better thing to celebrate than chocolates? I mean, we have World Sushi Day, we have World Cheese Day, we have all sorts of days that are much less worthy of celebration than chocolate. Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those days. I'm sure it was invented by a marketing company, and it's apparently the anniversary of the introduction of chocolate to Europe in 1550 is kind of the reason for the celebration.
Right. Talk to us about just the popularity of chocolate. I mean, it's been forever and a day. You know, we were born and chocolate was popular, and we're still here and chocolate is popular, and it's going to outlive us all, you know, in popularity. So talk to us about just the movement of chocolate. I mean, there's Belgian chocolate. There's all kinds of really fancy experiences of chocolate as we know it. But yeah, just some of your observance as well.
For sure. I mean, one of the nice things about South Africa is we have extraordinarily good secondary data. So it's data that's gathered by organizations that people can go into. We've got a data portal where people can go in and query that data and help them with their company strategies or their consumer strategies or just understanding South Africans better. So one of the questions it asks is what chocolate you eat and in what form. So chocolate assortments or slabs or chocolate bars. And the interesting thing is, as you mentioned before I got on, about half, just a bit more than half of all adult South Africans have eaten some form of chocolate in the past month, one of those three. Obviously, we can't ask children these questions, but I'm sure they're also huge consumers of chocolate, so it's obviously much greater than that. And if you get it down to sort of like chocolate bars, a third of the population has eaten a chocolate bar in any given week, and we can get down to the top brands, etc. If you're the number one in terms of people who say they eat it is Bar One, then Lunch Bar, Aero, Black Cat, and Kit Kat, all consumed by more than 1 million people in any given week in South Africa.
We are currently in conversation with Andrew about World Chocolate Day. If you didn't know, now you know. You have an excuse today to go and buy all the chocolate that you want. And Andrew's giving you a free license to do so. And what a wonderful way to pair chocolate with sport. We'll continue the conversation with Andrew in a moment. But what a wonderful way to pair chocolate. You know, in South Africa, when you're watching sport, rugby, you're eating it with biltong and also a bit of chocolate. And this weekend, the Springboks will be taking on Italy. And Mzansi, this is more than just a game. It's a celebration of history. 30 years ago, the Springboks united our nation with that iconic Rugby World Cup victory. And now, the mighty Boks are back. Don't miss South Africa versus Italy in the 30th anniversary commemoration match this Saturday, the 12th of July at 4 p.m. Central African Time. Watch it live on SABC2 or stream it anywhere on the SABC Plus app. Download the SABC Plus app today on your iOS or Android device or on your smart TV. Switch to stream, no subscription. SABC Sport, for the love of the game.
If it's news and current affairs, leading opinions, and thought leaders that get your groove, this is your home, The Upside.
Hello, Africa. We would love to hear your voice on our radio station. Be part of the fun and send a shout out or greeting message to your loved ones and your favorite Channel Africa presenters. Whether you're in Africa, the diaspora, or anywhere else around the globe, we want to hear your voice. Send your shout out message by sending an email to info@channelafrica.co.za or send them to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Help us diversify our sound with your voice. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Let The Upside transport you from Cape to Cairo every weekday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time.
9 minutes to go till it's 3 p.m. in Central African Time, in conversation about World Chocolate Day with Andrew Fulton, who is director at 8020. And they basically just look at all kinds of development and marketing of data and products, etc. So just an appropriate conversation that we're having on this World Chocolate Day. Let us know what your favorite chocolate is. Maybe you've got a favorite treat. We'd love to hear from you. I think the African continent and the production of cocoa in places like Ghana, I mean, we could talk about chocolate all day. Andrew, talk to me about the rise of health consciousness people. There's that market now that is on the rise, with all the sugar alternatives. Is traditional chocolate still holding its ground, if I could put it that way? Or are we going to be starting to see, or are we seeing a shift towards more artisanal, more functional chocolate, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, we do a number of these different sort of deep dives into different sort of foodstuffs every year. And when we did coffee, we also did fish. A lot of it is certainly for wealthier consumers. There is a shift towards more healthy offerings. There's also a shift towards, really taking pride and understanding where it came from and having your chocolate or your whiskey or your coffee, that you know how it's done, where it came from, and all of that. So there's a number of local producers. Honest Chocolates, there's BV Artisan, Cocoa Fair, Chocoloza, and they all sort of speak to that, how this chocolate was made, and there's definitely a shift to more sort of healthy alternatives like the darker chocolates that don't have as much sugar and not much fat. But to be honest, one of the things that's probably slowing the consumption of chocolate is the price. A chocolate is 40% more expensive now than it was in December 2021. Wow. And that's really because of climate change, supply chain pressures, economic pressures, etc. So that's the big challenge. Is that it's just it can only be grown in a narrow band of the planet, and those areas are getting under further stress in terms of being able to produce what they used to be able to produce at that price.
Andrew, what ought we be doing to celebrate and commemorate World Chocolate Day?
Well, I think the most obvious is just go buy some chocolate and eat it. And, what I do, it's interesting because obviously there's about, over 5 million people who will get a bar one this weekend and eat that. I personally, because of my age and my weight and my cholesterol, I try to do quality over quantity. So I'll probably celebrate with the Lindt. There's a really interesting new chocolate called Dubai chocolate that's really been a bit of a sensation in the past sort of 6 months. If you can find that, get it. But I mean, from what I've heard, Lindt sold out in a day, their entire production. It came in at a price point of 1,000 rand at Discount. It's now down to about 400, but I haven't been able to find it anywhere. And it's certainly something I'd like to get my hands on and try and see if it's worth all the hype that I've been reading about it.
Andrew, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. And we didn't need a reason to buy chocolate, but for today's sake, we're going to buy extra chocolate because of you and because of World Chocolate Day. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
I'm glad to be here. Hope you buy it for your staff too.
100%. No, actually, no, I'm very selfish. It's 6 minutes before 3 p.m. Central African Time. The voice there of Andrew Fulton. He is the director at 8020, telling us a bit more about the commemoration of World Chocolate Day and the data that they found that indicated over half the adult population in South Africa have bought chocolate in the past month. We love chocolate. Love chocolate.
There's no doubt about it. Chocolate is big business. Chocolate is delicious, and chocolate remains in vogue.
Some music while we figure out what chocolate we are going to get after the show.
Any money where I get, I dey flex, I dey ball, I dey vest, I dey shop.
Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because...
Oh my goodness me, 1 minute before 3 p.m. Central African time. Patek. The name of the song, Patek, by Chop Life Sound System, Mr. Easy, DJ Tariko, and Joey B. This is the Upside on Channel Africa. Those names, Mmatsheko, when you decide this is going to be my stage name.
Patek.
No, that's the name of the song. But we must talk to, we must find a way to chat with Chop Life Sound System. That's the whole name. Chop Life. Introducing to you on stage now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chop Life Sound System.
That's a whole sentence.
That sounds like equipment. Doesn't sound like a name of an artist to me. But anyway,
love it.
We need to have them on the show and understand exactly where that name is coming from. It's now 3 p.m. Central African time. Onelin Sinzi is standing by with the latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tebogo. Looking at your top stories, Kenyan police fired tear gas and water cannons on anniversary of pro-democracy protests, and U.S. President to meet Israeli Prime Minister today. The latest news, greetings to our listeners. Kenyan police fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse protesters in the capital Nairobi as they marked the 35th anniversary of pro-democracy rallies. Activists rally every year on July 7th to mark the date in 1990 when opponents of then-President Daniel Arap Moi launched a bid to transform the country into a multi-party democracy. The protest is called Saba Saba 77 in Kiswahili because of the date. Channel Africa correspondent in Kenya, Alex Kiari, explains.
The Saba Saba protests that were done in 1990 were, in a way, a violation of the then constitution that banned more political parties in the country. But now the advocates for the same were pushing for the introduction of multi-party democracy, which was realized 2 years after the new protest. And this time round, the young generation, which we call the Gen Zs, who have now partnered with the other generations, they call them Gen Zote, which means all generations, are pushing for an end to violations relating to human rights, and also they are also pushing for the right to be allowed to protest as it is allowed in the Constitution of Kenya.
The CEO in IRS Forensic Investigations in South Africa, Chad Thomas, says KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla's explosive allegations against the Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, has opened up a much-needed dialogue in the country. Mkhwanazi has made claims that Minister of Police Senzo Mchunu is in regular contact with individuals linked to criminal activities. Political parties have since called for an urgent debate on the deepening crisis within the South African police service and the broader criminal justice system.
He has a massive target on his back. Time will tell whether he did the right thing. I believe he did, because it's a dialogue we've needed for a very long time, and we need to out the bad apples that exist within our policing structures. But I think he is in for a torrid time, and he's going to be targeted by spinners and bad actors acting for the other bad actors. And I do think he's got the strength and fortitude to see this through. And let's just hope that this is the catalyst we've been looking for that brings about the changes within the police leadership.
The South African Parliament Police Portfolio Chairperson Ian Cambron has meanwhile called for an ad hoc commission to be established to investigate the allegations of criminality in police service. This comes after allegations of the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi that Police Minister Senzo Mchunu is affiliated to persons linked to criminal activities. Cameron says a range of interventions should be implemented, like vetting and lifestyle audits, as well as establishing an ad hoc committee.
The first one is an appointment of some kind of an ad hoc inquiry or commission with a clear timeline to urgently investigate the allegations. And I must emphasize with this the importance of the dockets that were mentioned yesterday by General Mkhwanazi, that those dockets or the processes regarding them should be frozen until an independent inquiry can be done. I think it is a massive risk to just leave them in the system after what we heard yesterday.
South Africa's African National Congress Party National Executive Committee member David Mahlabo says more than most ANC comrades who served with the former Deputy President David Mabuza are still in shock over his passing. Mabuza died at the age of 64 in hospital last Thursday. Mahlobo has joined the Executive Council of the provincial government to pay homage to the Mabuza family. Mahlobo says they had hoped that his health will fully recover.
Most of us are still reeling with shock. We never believed that this time will arrive at a time when all of us had hoped that Deputy President Mabuza was feeling much better. And it was all of a sudden. But we've come to terms now that he has played his part. We must allow him to rest. There are many memories that we are going to cherish. At an individual level, a number of us, when the ANC was unbanned.
Lastly, U.S. President Donald Trump will meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later today at the White House, where they are expected to discuss a proposed ceasefire deal for the war in Gaza. This as Israeli officials hold indirect talks with Hamas aimed at a U.S. brokered Gaza hostage release and ceasefire deal. Trump said there was a good chance such a deal could be reached this week. The Palestinian independent politician Mustafa Barghouti says the White House plays a crucial role in reaching the deal.
I think if there is sufficient pressure from the side of President Trump on Netanyahu, who faces very strong opposition inside his government to a ceasefire, and if Netanyahu listens even to internal pressure from Israel, including families of the Israeli captives, then we will see a ceasefire.
Recapping on your top stories, Kenyan police have fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse protesters in the capital Nairobi as they mark the 35th anniversary of pro-democracy rallies. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
7 minutes after 3 p.m. Central African Time. Can you believe it's the final hour of The Upside on Channel Africa, the African perspective? Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon on our Upside Monday edition. It's a warm... I was going to say it's a warm day in Johannesburg, but actually it's not. It's quite windy outside. We are warm in studio, but outside it's a bit windy. But we hope that we're keeping you nice and toasty warm on the show this afternoon. You are welcome to stream our show live on social media. In fact, we encourage it, so you can check out our studio and see the presenters at Channel Africa on Facebook and YouTube. If you have DSTV, it's channel 802, OpenView channel 628. And as always, you can download the SABC Plus app so you can take us with you wherever you go. Well, in this hour, Mmatsheko, we are celebrating and congratulating someone getting a new position. You know when you get that congratulations email, congratulations, you've just been appointed.
Oh, man.
That's what happened with Beth.
That is the best kind of email anyone can get. So indeed, we're celebrating a trailblazer in the arts, not just a CEO, a builder of systems, a champion for creatives, and a voice for calling us to see the arts not just as entertainment, but as the future of African economies everywhere. But particularly in South Africa. Of course, we're celebrating Beth Arendse and her appointment as Chief Executive Officer of Business of Arts South Africa, or BASA, as it's known for short. It's going to be, I think, a wonderful conversation really when you look at the space of the arts and how seriously they're taken in South Africa, and how we can actually be a shining example for the rest of the continent. So I'm really looking forward to unpacking the business of the arts and also to talk about the work of BASA as an organization.
And I love the fact that she is a woman who doesn't just support the arts, she builds infrastructure.
Yes, she does.
And how much we need that in the art space. It's 9 minutes after 3 p.m. Central African Time. Were you able to catch the rugby game on Saturday? Catch highlights, people talking about it between Italy and South Africa?
No, what's that emoji with the gentleman with the tie where he goes like a... No, I did not. I did not.
Well, you've got an opportunity to catch the second game, which will be taking place on Saturday, the 12th of July. Because Mzansi, this is more than just a game. It's a celebration of history. 30 years ago, the Springboks united our nation with that iconic Rugby World Cup victory. And now, the mighty Boks are back. Don't miss South Africa versus Italy in the 30th anniversary commemoration match this Saturday, the 12th of July at 4 p.m. Central African Time. Watch it live on SABC2 or stream it anywhere on the SABC Plus app. Download the SABC Plus app today on iOS or Android or your smart TV. Switch to stream, no subscription. SABC Sport, for the love of the game.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel Africa. Adivinha só, a Channel Africa quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel Africa está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Stella Longwe. Pamalonje.
Palitusoko mapano pamalonje. Kumvera nyimbo za mu Africa kusangalala, kupeza moyo, akuti kumva moyo kuti kuyenda bwino pano pamalonje. Ndiyetu apa tili ndikatswiri oyimba ameneyu ndikatswiri wa dziko la Malawi amene akukhala mdziko la South Africa, ndipo amayimba amene akuti ndi Big Nick Malawi. Yatusati kuti kodi moyo wanu woyimba ukuyenda bwanji mu Johannesburg?
Moyo woyimba ukuyenda bwinobwino kwambiri. Chiliyonse chikutheka ndithu bwinobwino.
Hayi azioneka yonse magrasi anu apa mwaka. Akuti kumenya yonse hayi zioneka zona ayizikutheka ndithu mu Johannesburg.
Malonje panthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lowiruka ndi Stella Longwe. If it's news and current affairs, leading opinions, and thought leaders that get your groove, this is your home, The Upside. Mmatsheko Mosito and Tebogo Lekhuleni on The Upside. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the...
.15 on the clock again. Another 15:15. Oh my gosh, it's always just so amazing when the clock ends nice and synchronized. Welcome to the final hour of The Upside with Tebogo and Mmatsheko, coming through with Southern African sounds from Java with Linda in the Nguni languages. That means wait, because we're about to have a really big conversation here. And really, I think as a tribute to this wonderful woman that we're going to be speaking to, but also looking at the work of Business and Arts South Africa, we are about to get into conversation with Beth Arendse, who is known for being a visionary cultural strategist and a seasoned leader. She's got 20 years under her belt in experience when it comes to driving innovation and transformational spaces within the South African creative and cultural landscape. She is now appointed as Chief Executive Officer of Business and Arts South Africa, or BASA as it's known, this year. And we are going to look at how she's going to weave in this rare combination of, entrepreneurial agility, public sector insight, and also drive a deeper sense of sectoral expertise into the work that she does.
100%. Because from music schools to incubators, national commissioners to cultural revolutions, our next guest has done it all. And now she's stepping into one of the most influential leadership roles in South Africa's creative economy. We are honored to welcome the newly appointed CEO of Business and Arts South Africa, or BASA, Beth Arendse, a woman who doesn't just support the arts, she builds infrastructure for it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Beth Arendse. Beth, thank you so much for your time and welcome to The Upside.
It needs a drum roll.
Thank you so much. Wow, that's an amazing hyped up introduction. Thank you, guys. You should be on stage.
Listen, we are happy to be your hype duo for a small fee.
I like it. Creative business.
Beth, congratulations on this appointment. You've got such a multifaceted career, and you've had a multifaceted career for quite some time. If we trickle back to where it all started, would you say that it began at the Tshwane School of Music for you?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here today and for the kind words. I think actually it really did. So I actually studied in the arts. I'm a musician by training, jazz guitarist to be specific, and as all creatives, you have to do the hustle. You have to get out there and try and make this creative thing work. And establishing the music school was the point at which I realized if I don't get some business knowledge, this thing's going down. And it's very difficult to sustain any business. Any small business is hard. Entrepreneurship is hard. But in the arts, it can be particularly challenging. And so out of that experience, I managed to get some business incubation from a well-known incubator in Johannesburg and was able to turn around the donor to generated income ratio significantly in a 12-month period. And I realized that just because I thought with the other side of my brain didn't mean I couldn't be a great entrepreneur. And I think creatives are often intrinsically entrepreneurial. We maybe just think about it differently, have different language for it. And then thus the incubator was born, where I established an incubator that would support creative businesses in a way that creatives would get it, and understanding the value chains that are in the creative economy, which is slightly different to sort of the general economy often. So it really was driven by my own experience as a creative trying to make something work.
I want us to come back and then talk to you about just, establishing the Tshwane School of Music and the business, the music business lab, as it were, and also just the preparation that comes with your appointment as Chief Executive Officer. In conversation with Beth Arendse, CEO of Business and Arts South Africa. We'll be right back.
For Mandela, life was about making a difference, not just living. This Mandela Day, Channel Africa honors that legacy.
It is for humanity, or for society, to decide how I should be remembered. I am not a saint unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying.
On Channel Africa.
The African Perspective.
This is The Upside, for the best African vibes, groundbreaking content.
Welcome back. 20 minutes past 3 p.m. in Central African Time. Beth Arendse is joining us in her capacity as CEO of Business and Arts South Africa, or BASA for short. And we really are talking about the genesis of her work, but essentially the new role as Chief Executive Officer and where that's going to go. So, Beth, let's talk about that. Let's talk about, you talk a little bit about just your entrepreneurial pursuits, your jazz music studies, as it were. And I guess this has just been wonderful preparation for this new chapter at BASA. So what are we looking at here? What is your vision for BASA as we head into a new era, if you will?
Yeah. So BAS has got a really critical role to play as one of the only sort of mandated entities to hold this space between business and the arts and to articulate what that means and to unlock value and build valuable partnerships between the corporate world and the arts sector. And then it's also really a space that provides leadership, thought leadership, advocacy for the creative economy. And the creative economy has too long been sort of on the side. We consider the song and dance people, which is all right, but we play a significant role in the general economy. The creative economy employs more people than the mining sector in South Africa, as many as the agricultural sector. We're at the nexus of technology, and all that is happening with AI and digital content is the new gold. So there are so many economic conversations that need to be had and coordinated, and I really see BASA's role as that, being the ecosystem builder and enabler around the intersection of business and the arts, and doing that through great research, market-driven insights, and knowledge that is needed to back up the creative economy's growth, as well as building the partnerships that need to unlock this value for the art sector as well as for the corporate sector.
And Beth, talk to us about the importance and the significance of policies to ensure that these initiatives, these ideas to strengthen the creative space and business is governed by policies that are for the creatives. Oftentimes we see creatives in spaces where they're very much overlooked, some may feel overexploited, and there are no policies to govern their stay and their longevity in that space.
Yep. So three immediate lines of policy come to mind. The first one is that we need good, strong policies around gig work, freelance work. In this country. We don't have that right now, and that means that as a freelance worker, you don't have social protection mechanisms in place like other work categories have. Gig work is the future of work across the economy, not just in the creative sector. We've just been doing it longer. But that is a critical discussion. It is starting to happen with the Department of Labor via various different groups, but that is one that we definitely will be contributing to as well. Once you have a policy in place around gig work, then you're able to look at things like UIF and, just basic worker rights that right now don't exist because of the categorization of creative work under this gig work banner. The other area of policy is more than policy, is actually legislation, is the intellectual property legislation that is currently needing to be finalized still. The creative economy is pretty much a knowledge economy. Our assets are our IP. And until we have proper IP regimes in place, we also lose out significantly from an economic perspective. So that's a really critical piece of legislation. And then the third thing, and there is some good work being done here by the Department of Trade and Industry, is that we need sector master plans in place from that department, because that then governs the types of investment, the types of sort of the bureaucracy around how a particular sector is run or incentivized from an industrial policy perspective. So there are master plans that have recently been done for the audiovisual sector, for music, and there's been a craft policy and a film policy. So those are helpful. You can see one of the older policies is film and craft, the sector master plans. And you did see once those were in place that there was some impetus behind putting funding in these sectors. There was some growth in these sectors. Or as always, there could probably be better coordination, better alignment within government between departments across all these areas. But those are sort of the key areas of policy that would really make a difference. And the creative sector is broad. So we've got music and audiovisual, craft, film, but we still lack policies across a lot of the other areas of the creative industries. So policy is a really critical part of how this economy functions, or facilitates how we function in a significant way.
in a significant way, just being the operative words. Thank you very much. Beth Arendse is joining us, and we're talking to her in her capacity as CEO of BASA. I want to build on what you're saying, Beth, in terms of just the gig economy, which is the future, as you've said it rightfully. And also just talk about, obviously we're looking here at concerns as well around just making the space of creativity more inclusive, if I could put it that way, in the formal creative economy. So let's go back to BASA then. Please elaborate on how BASA is going to revamp membership tiers, and how will there be initiatives rather that will open more doors for this to occur?
Absolutely. That's one of the things that you'll see quite soon being announced from BASA, is that we are opening up membership to creatives that is free, where creatives are able to join without membership fees, and then have different tiers of membership where corporates and others come on board, so that we can unlock benefits for artists and creators and unlock benefits for our corporate partners. So the membership of BASA should not be limited to, a few exclusive businesses that can afford to pay for membership when it comes to the creative sector. It needs to be opened up so that the artists are free to join, and that we can provide the value that we would like to provide. We want to be connecting up artists to market access, to opportunities, funding. We're looking at some innovative partnerships between corporates to develop products that are relevant to the creative sector. We need financial services products that work for a creative. I'm sure there are banks out there that can provide loans and home loans to gig workers if we have a large creative industry company coming in to back something like that. So those are the types of initiatives that we want to see, so that we are unlocking value for the creative sector, and then also providing value from the creative sector for the general business sector in South Africa.
And Beth, for those who would like to find out more about BASA and maybe enroll or even just support, where can they find information?
So check out BASA on our social media platforms, our website as well. You'll find everything you need to know online. And in the coming weeks, we're going to be launching several different campaigns where we'll be, our PR campaigns should be reaching you as well via these social media platforms to announce some of the new initiatives that we're about to embark on.
Beth, congratulations on becoming the new CEO of BASA. All the best on your journey, and we certainly hope that you'll be that bridge between the creative space and business that will allow the creatives to have longevity in this space and enjoy being a catalyst for storytelling on the African continent.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for having me.
The voice there of Beth Arendse. What a lovely conversation that was. I mean, we ourselves are in this space, so a very valuable conversation.
No, she had me at, they must give us loans, you see. She had me at that.
They must give us loads. The new CEO of BASA there, Beth Arendse. It's 30 minutes after 3 p.m. Central African time. For the last time on The Upside this afternoon, Musibudi Makura is standing by with sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tebogo. A very good afternoon from the sports desk. So now Liberian football legend James Daba applied his trade in his native country, Liberia, also West African neighbor Cameroon, France, as well in Europe. Now Daba now serves as Liberia's Football Association's head of technical schemes. Speaking to Channel Africa Sport, the Monrovia-born former forward says football in Liberia is like a religion.
In Liberia, Liberians, I would say they are soccer crazy. We love the game of football. I mean, it's like a religion. Every kid in Monrovia wants to be a soccer player.
Well, he further explains exactly what his new role will entail as the head of technical team at the Liberian Football Federation.
All the transition has been difficult. I would say difficult in the sense because I missed the game. To be factual, I missed the game. But when I retire, when I venture into coaching, I coached the national team for 3 years. And after coaching, what I have now, I'm the head of the technical development scheme, which is scouting the younger generation of players. I've been working basically with the under 12, the under 14, under 15. I'm the head of that department in the Liberia Football Association.
On to rugby news now, the Springbok women's coach Suez de Bruin has lamented the lack of clarity when it comes to the law, especially at the breakdown. He was reacting after his team's 50-20 loss to the number 2 ranked side Canada at Loftus Versfeld in the country's capital city Pretoria on Saturday afternoon as they ramp up their preparations for the World Cup in England in less than 50 days. De Bruin says they even had a former referee at training to help them with the laws, but they're still punished on the day.
Yeah, as I just said now, the breakdown was the biggest problem. And we had Alain Rumar there with us a couple of sessions to help us with the breakdown. And we spoke about and he showed clips, so it's right and it's wrong. But it's that interpretation that we got to sort out now. You know, are they going to blow it in the World Cup like that? Then we got to think totally different. There's no way you can go to ground then. But then if I watch men's rugby, normal rugby, if the plane lifts and then goes down, it's fine.
At the same time, De Bruin also says the result against a top team like Canada is not that important as they just want to test themselves against the best teams in the world. He believes, though, that the gap is slowly narrowing compared to the last time the two teams met in 2016.
Yeah, firstly, in a test game not a test game, but in a game like this for us, the score is important, but it's not everything. It's combinations. It's where we are in the world. Last time we played them, it was 66-7, and now it's 50-12. 50-20. So the gap is closed. The gap is definitely closed, but we've got so much work left. And it's for all of us a reality check.
On to boxing news now. Former multiple world champion Ricky Hatton has announced his return to boxing. Hatton, who turns 47 in October, will fight the United Arab Emirates' Issa Al-Dar in a middleweight bout on the 2nd of December in Dubai. So organisers say the contest will be a professional bout, but it's still unclear if it will be fully sanctioned or if it will still have the conditions like the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul bout, where there were shorter rounds and a limit on the number of rounds. Hatton fought Marco Antonio Barrera in an exhibition bout back in 2022. The fight was announced during a show promoted by Al Daha in Dubai on Sunday, with Hatton also confirming his return via live stream. Hatton won world titles at welterweight as well as light welterweight divisions. His announcement also comes just after Manny Pacquiao, 46 years of age, confirmed his return, a title bout with WBC welterweight champion Mario Barrios on the 19th of July. And finally, in live cricket action at the moment, it is South Africa facing off against Zimbabwe in the second test out at the Queen's Club in Bulawayo. South Africa earlier on declaring on 626 for the loss of 5 wickets after 114 overs. At the moment, after 34 overs, Zimbabwe on 129 for 8, still trailing South Africa now by 497. It's day 2 of the tournament. It's the third session as well of the day, with tea fast approaching between these two teams. And as a wrap from the sports desk at the hour, for any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +27 11714 4459. It's 15:35 p.m. Central African time. More sporting updates coming up in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibu Di Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
C'est notre invitée du jour, la belle Aïna Mwenze. Elle est là, certaines l'appellent Boss Lady.
Bonjour Monsieur Jolino.
Parlez-nous un tout petit peu de vous.
Je m'appelle Boss Lady Aïna. Je mets l'accent sur le nom de Boss Lady parce que je mérite cela après le travail fait. Et c'est une rémunération en titre de la personne que je suis devenue aujourd'hui. Épouse et une mère de 4 garçons. Et voilà ce que je veux dire pour l'instant.
Et vous vous êtes lancé dans le business. Comment c'est venu?
En tant que mère et se retrouvant dans les pays étrangers, particulièrement en Afrique du Sud, je me disais que laisser les enfants sur la charge des travailleurs ou d'une bonne, ça serait pas très intéressant. Je me dis, bon, je dois essayer de m'organiser et trouver un emploi que je peux faire.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
We are on OpenView's audio bouquet. Channel 628.
37 minutes after 3 p.m. Central African time. And for the very last time this afternoon on The Upside, let's get the business news with Chanduko Likeke.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Tebogo, and good afternoon. Nigerian banks have resumed the use of Naira debit cards for international transactions and online payments more than 3 years after financial institutions suspended the service due to acute dollar shortages. The move by the bank signals improved dollar availability following reforms under President Bola Tinubu, who in June 2023 scrapped currency controls, increasing the flow of dollars into the economy. GT Bank, which is among the largest by market value, says Naira debit cards can now be used with a limit of $1,000 a quarter. According to the bank, the quarterly limit covers all transactions, including ATM cash withdrawals, purchases on international websites, point-of-sale payments outside Nigeria, and many more. Algeria's state oil and gas company Sonatrach and Italy's Eni have signed a production sharing contract to explore and develop hydrocarbons. Total investments for exploration and development work in the so-called Zemual El Kiba contractual perimeter are estimated at $1.35 billion. The work schedule relating to this hydrocarbon contract includes recourse to innovative technological processes, integrating the latest digital solutions pertaining to operating, the use of new technologies of production, optimization, and reserves recovery. The South African Trade Ministry spokesperson Camille Ali says South Africa is not anti-American and still wants to negotiate a trade deal with the U.S. This after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened an extra 10% tariff on countries aligned with the BRICS grouping. Trump accused the BRICS group of developing nations, of which South Africa is a member, of anti-American policies yesterday as BRICS leaders were holding a summit in Brazil. South Africa has been trying to negotiate a trade deal with Trump's administration since May, when Trump hosted President Cyril Ramaphosa for talks in the White House. South Africa's Minister of Transport, Barbara Creecy, says a functional transport system is important. She says that the integrated transport system of the country needs to be planned, constructed, operated, and maintained in such a manner that long-term economic growth and development in the country can be achieved and sustained. She was speaking at the 4-day Southern African Transport Conference currently taking place in the capital, Pretoria. She says the country is continually improving its transport systems.
In addition to the work we're doing in rail, we're also trying to upgrade the access network of airports. One of the things we've seen is the dramatic revival of aviation after the COVID pandemic. And we are seeing that there's increasing appetite for air transport, but there's also increasing appetite for air freight.
Oil prices briefly fell slightly this morning after OPEC Plus accelerated output hikes and raised concerns about oversupply. OPEC Plus announced the decision on Saturday to increase oil output by 548,000 barrels per day in August. According to a statement on the OPEC website, the decision was made after the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and their allies, a group known as OPEC Plus, reviewed global market conditions and outlook. Nothando Magudulela reports.
On Monday morning, Brent crude futures fell 67 cents following the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and their allies' agreement on Saturday to raise production in August. This decision will further accelerate output since oil prices jumped and then retreated following Israeli and US attacks on Iran. The increase in August represents monthly increases of 411,000 barrels approved by OPEC Plus for May, June, and July.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira, 527. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 10. Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling, 545 in Zambia, 24 kwacha 18. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 42. Russia, 78 ruble 69. India, 84 rupee 98. China, 71 16. South Africa, 17 rand 56 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound, 84 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $3,309, platinum at $1,353 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $68.71 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba.
Cette peur d'un point de non-retour nucléaire suffit-elle selon vous à légitimer une telle offensive, Monsieur Taladi?
Absolument pas du tout. Cela fait plus de 30 ans que l'Israël crie haut et fort sur les toits, où il veut se faire entendre que l'Iran serait à 1 an pour obtenir l'arme nucléaire. Parfois, l'Iran serait à 6 mois. Parfois, l'Iran serait à 2 semaines pour obtenir son arme nucléaire. Et curieusement, jusqu'à ce jour, il n'y a toujours aucune preuve que l'Iran a obtenu cette arme nucléaire en dépit des déclarations d'Israël et de certaines puissances parfois.
Vue d'Afrique, du lundi au vendredi de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
Fresh and exciting. The Upside, hooking you up with today's news from the African perspective.
During this Africa Month. And we paid attention to the fact that we've got a very good opportunity to place on the global agenda various matters of concern to us because of this situation with regard to the G20.
President Becky, you have helped us move from the general to the specific. When we talk about African solutions for African problems, what does that mean? It has become a saying that we are saying daily. Everyone is saying this statement. What exact actions do we have to do as private sector, as government, even as NGOs? So thank you so much.
It is important and critical that when government puts together policies and frameworks on business, that it involves business itself. Business policies cannot be drafted and be expected to be implemented by business without business not having been involved.
And because of that, we, the Tanzanian business community, decided that we are going to rally the whole continent. I think if we took that resolution, I'm moving it as a resolution. And John Ambassador Mbongwe said he's going to second me. During this Africa Month. And we paid attention to the fact that we've got a very good opportunity to place on the global agenda various matters of concern to us because of this situation with regard to the G20.
President Becky, you have helped us move from the general to the specific. When we talk about African solutions for African problems, what does that mean? It has become a saying that we are saying daily.
Everyone is saying this statement. What exact actions do we have to do as private sector, as government, even as NGOs? So thank you so much.
It is important and critical that when government puts together policies and frameworks on business, that it involves business itself. Business policies cannot be drafted and be expected to be implemented by business without business not having been involved.
And because of that, we, the Tanzanian business community, decided that we are going to rally the whole continent. I think if we took that resolution, I'm moving it as a resolution. And John, Ambassador Mbongo said he's going to second me.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Ahoy, matey.
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa 1. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa 1. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Whatever you want to hear about today's talk, you can get it on the upside.
to fight for my yearnings. The fear in my mind is a warning. Pray to the one you're relying. I've been wandering all day. I tried to be fine, but I can't be. The noise in my mind wouldn't leave me. I tried to get by, but I'm burning. I'm behind my mind.
Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future.
Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Hey, I don't, yeah, oh no. I might be falling deep. 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 Tell me now. I've been going to God when I'm only in my mind. I might be falling deep, falling deep. I might be falling.
6 minutes before 4 p.m. Central African Time. Thames, free your mind. Free it from the matrix.
Oh.
Do you believe that we are in a matrix, Mmatsheko?
Oh, there's a big one, unfortunately.
What's the big one?
The big matrix.
The big matrix.
That people have fallen into. Oh, it's a very deep one. So yes, people are in the matrix. And we are
still in it. How can we
people are largely in it?
How can we free our minds to get out of the matrix?
A good place to start would be with Eckhart Tolle's New Earth. Start reading that. Start reading about African cosmology. Start reading about the kingdom of Pukubje. And I promise you will start to shift and change and shape yourself differently.
The last 5 minutes of the Upside this afternoon, we're going to give you some pearls of wisdom.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, why not? Before we get into, hand over the baton to Africa in business, let's give them some pearls of wisdom this Monday afternoon. Earlier, we had mentioned numbers. And I don't know about you, if you're big on numerology, angel numbers, and so on and so forth. You specifically hopped on the 1515 time that we got in on. You said perfect synchronicity. Just remind us, 1515, the significance of that number from a numerology point of view.
Hey, I'm not a numerologist, but you had sent me something. I'm trying to look for it now.
I did.
You had sent me something around the significance of 1515. The angel number 1515 signifies positive change.
There we go.
New beginnings and opportunity coming into your life. So what does that mean? That means when you see the synchronized 1515 on a digital clock, it is a good time for you to just step into that feeling, step into that energy, kind of live in the life that you want, that you are manifesting for yourself. That's another trendy term, isn't it? Manifest.
Did you hear, and I was whispering it so you can hear it through the radio on your phone. Did you hear that? It's about new beginnings. That 1515, new beginnings, a positive, something about a positive start, an auspicious start. If you've been waiting for that good news, or maybe you've been submitting your CVs and resumes and hoping for some good news, maybe this is the week for you. And if you believe it, if you bring those positive energies around you, it will just happen for you. And so I'm glad that we got that 1515 to just inspire the listeners at home that good things are headed their way this week.
No, totally. And we're also in a 777 portal because today is the 7th of the seventh month, right? So another rare and powerful opportunity cosmically to just send out your prayers and they will be received on the other end. So that's another angel number. But we've got another angel.
We've got an angel in studio.
A business angel in the studio.
We've got an angel in
It's all about the numbers, right?
It
It's
is.
all about the
so
numbers.
That's a beautiful segue into Africa in business, coming through with Tami Ngubeni after the 4 p.m. news bulletin.
Oh, certainly a lot in store for you today. We'll be speaking about President John Mahama of Ghana's new policy to revitalize the manufacturing sector in Ghana and how to make sure that it is not, largely dependent on the ocean's economy. How do they unlock the inland potential of Ghana? So we'll be focusing on that policy. And it's called the 24-hour economy policy. We'll also be looking at the transport conference, which is currently taking place in Pretoria, South Africa. Yeah. It is a 4-day conference looking at economic development, cost of poor transport infrastructure, and also trying to find practical, bold ways of really just connecting the dots, making sure that the infrastructure and the transportation, corridors are conducive for economic growth, and that economic growth stimulates the economies around there. And Trump is at it again. We know the BRICS summit, currently taking place, the BRICS group meeting in Rio de Janeiro. Yeah. And Trump took to social media, to his specific platform, Truth Social, and he said he's going to put on an additional 10% tariff on any country that is supportive of what he calls anti-American policies that are aligned to BRICS. So he has outwardly gone out and called BRICS very much of a nemesis and anti-American, and anybody who aligns with those policies will have a beautiful 10% extra tariff slapped upon them. That and a whole lot more coming up on African Business.
Hey, Trump out here playing with his toys, throwing them out the court again. When are we going to have a conversation about Trump? We'll talk about him tomorrow.
Not today.
On the upside.
Not on the 7th day of the 7th month.
I mean, thank
not
you.
Today.
Not today. Not today. It's 4 p.m. Central African time. As for me and Mmatsheko and the Upside team, we'll see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. Onel Nsinzi is standing by with the news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tebogo. Looking at your top stories this hour, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa asked to act to protect the credibility of the police service, and the U.S. President to meet Israeli Prime Minister later today. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. The South African chairperson of Parliament's Police Portfolio Committee, Ian Cameron, says President Cyril Ramaphosa should urgently act to protect the credibility of the police service. This follows allegations of corruption involving high-ranking police officers. There are also allegations that police Minister Senzo Mchunu has affiliations with an individual with criminal links. The allegations were made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. During a media briefing conference at Parliament, Cameron called on Ramaphosa to act urgently.
As the head of state, the President has a responsibility to implement an intensive investigation into the corruption allegations at SAPS to protect and promote the credibility of the service. The committee welcomes, and this is the Police Committee, the assurance of the President in his latest press release to give the matter due regard upon his return from Brazil, but has urged that this matter be priority number one.
Meanwhile, the CEO of IRS Forensic Investigations in South Africa, Chad Thomas, says the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner's Lieutenant General Nhlanhla's explosive allegations against the Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, has opened up a much-needed dialogue in the country. Mkhwanazi has made claims that Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, is in regular contact with individuals linked to criminal activities. Political parties have since called for an urgent debate on the deepening crisis within the South African Police Service and the broader criminal justice system.
He has a massive target on his back. Time will tell whether he did the right thing. I believe he did, because it's a dialogue we've needed for a very long time, and we need to out the bad apples that exist within our policing structures. But I think he is in for a torrid time, and he's going to be targeted by spinners and bad actors acting for the other bad actors. And I do think he's got the strength and fortitude to see this through. And let's just hope that this is the catalyst we've been looking for that brings about the changes within the police leadership.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has accorded the former Deputy President David Mabuza with the State Funeral Category 2, which will be held on Saturday in the Mpumalanga province. The former president passed away last Thursday at the age of 64 after a short illness at a Johannesburg hospital. Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya says President Ramaphosa has ordered that the national flag be flown at half-mast from today till the evening of the funeral as part of the mourning period.
In terms of the state official and provincial official funeral policy manual of the presidency, the state funeral category 2 is reserved for the deputy president